Flying cars aren't the future of transport. Even if every sci-fi movie ever primed you for a future with flying cars. We aren't already living in the future because there aren't any flying cars. Only flying houses. Quote by Up or / in the air. A common argument is this: we already are living in the future. The advancements of technology are already making things possible people years ago only could have dreamt about. David Sinclair and his team, for example, already had quite some success in reversing aging in animals. With a dramatic worldwide demographic change ahead of us, a thing that will make things better for sure. But will flying cars also make things better? The question is a good one. This question is a good one. And as with many good questions, the answer is neither very simple nor very short. Because it depends on the intent of the question, the definition of every single word making up that specific question, and on many constraints. One of these is the simple fact transporting 10 billion people every single day in vehicles only taking a few people at a single time is probably something that won't happen. Of course, the actual need for small flying vehicles due to economic constraints will already be much smaller, but just imagine cars actually flying instead of driving. The problem with 3D space is something entirely new, at least entirely new to cars. Cars and other driving vehicles are essentially only moving in 2D space, with the roads, rails and pathways acting not only as means of transport, but also as a guide to move along the seemingly never-ending 2D plane called Earth. But the Earth isn't flat, you could say, and you would be right indeed. To some extent, everything moving in 2D space already is moving up and down quite a lot, due to height differences of the points in 2D space. But compared to the actual length of your way on the 2D plane, the vertical movement can be ignored. But only up to the point where we try to fly. And this is actually, usually, where things get exciting. Pretty quickly. Why? Probably mainly because we aren't as used to flying as we are to driving. If flying was or will be an everyday thing, chances are people won't be looking out the window in awe every single second of their trip anymore, just like in today's planes. But when it comes to movement in 3D space, there is one fundamental problem. Things get complicated, whereas moving along a one-dimensional line doesn't require much calculation, and essentially, with the 2D road system, we are approximating moving along 1D lines most of the time, except highways maybe, from the point on where these vehicles actually take the leap and things become airborne, the amount of calculation needed increases by a huge margin. Because 3D space actually creates infinite possibilities for any incremental step along your journey. On a road, there mostly is one way. Forward. You cannot even turn backward without using other roads or risking your license, especially if the flying vehicles are capable of moving in every single direction possible. You might say planes already have the exact same constraints. And the answer to this is no. Only theoretically. Practically, planes actually cannot move in every single direction, like into every direction on a sphere. But rather, planes only can go up, down, a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right. Drones, or the type of vehicle drones represent, namely flying vehicles with multiple motors and able to actually move into every single direction of our imaginary sphere, therefore complicating the problem of calculating possible routes without interfering with the routes of other vehicles into a problem of an entirely new level. Of course, the sphere is only a representation for a point where you actually can move into every single other 3D direction. Ever asked yourself why air traffic controllers get paid so much? Partly due to the problem of avoiding crashes of planes moving in 3D space actually being kind of harder than the problem of managing road traffic. Of course, there is an argument to be made. AI will constantly calculate solutions for us, and this probably will come true. But that just doesn't stop other constraints from constraining the scale of small vehicles like flying cars from overtaking mass transport. And the solution is one humans actually copied from nature. It simply isn't very efficient to transport single items or humans from the starting point straight to the end point. Ever took a closer look at the leaves of a tree? So here is the structure of a tree, of a leaf of a tree, splitting things up for reaching the final destinations, just like the small dendrites on a tree leaf, from small to big and from big to small again, just like the transport of nutrients in the leaf of a tree, or the whole area in general. The roots of the tree picking up the nutrients from their starting point. All these single dendrites then unite into a single tree trunk. The single roots, until everything splits apart again when it comes to reaching the final destination. It's the same with public transport already. We still have to walk a few steps to the bus station, or ride a bike, or riding a bike along the entire trip and therefore not even using public transport, or using a car to get to the next point of transport like the bus, the underground or the train. Then more single people unite in this bigger pipe of transport, covering as much ground as possible without making the rounds of all the single traveling items inefficient. If you could get off at any point along the journey, everybody else would have to wait. Therefore, the stops of public transport are a balancing act, balancing the effectiveness of all the single routes and trying to calculate the best solution. Then you get off the bus, train, and essentially try to reach the single cells of the leaves of a tree, metaphorically speaking, your destination. Improvements have been made in recent years. The so often talked about last mile problem is also a first mile problem, as we just found out, and solving this problem by walking is very inefficient indeed. It would be more efficient by running, a thing humans can do, but apparently don't do. When using a bike, you have the problem of having to reverse the route with the bike, essentially constraining your trip to destination and back, which for commuting does work, but often it doesn't, and this is where scooters just fit the need and therefore didn't hit cities worldwide with no reason. And flying cars will have a similar role, essentially acting as an add-on, just like the scooters for the last mile or the first mile, or bikes, or cars, or car-sharing services. In an ideal world, everything would be covered by one system of transport, connecting every single point on Earth, or on our solar system, or in our solar system, or our galaxy, but that's just not economical. Just like a tree doesn't cover all of Earth, these systems only make sense where they actually need to transport something or someone. Building a Hyperloop straight for a single person or to the North Pole just won't be the next big idea. You will find Elon Musk founding a startup to solve it. Use it or lose it, says evolution, and so do humans when it comes to transport, and where exactly flying cars will fit into our bigger already existing system of transport soon, also including super duper trains like Hyperloops, we will soon find out.